So we have a panel discussion, and I have to manage. I have a tough job of integrating a lot of topics. So I will ask Dr. Ashutosh Datta, IEEE 5G. Can you just come over? Then I will ask Srijit, Walmart. Yes, come over. Then I'll ask Vinay Dua, Cisco. Come over, sir. Then Natraj, Accenture. Come over, sir. Then Srinivas, Intel. Come over, sir. And then Alok, Tata Communication. Come over, sir. Can you get some water? I definitely need water. All right. What I will do is, since I have been talking along, I need a slight break. I'll ask each one of them to introduce themselves briefly, themselves and their companies, a little bit, and then we will start a presentation. Dr. Datta first. Can I?
Yeah, okay. Hi, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Ashutosh Datta. I currently work at Johns Hopkins University, Maryland, USA. I used to work at AT&T, Columbia University, Bell Communication Research, and another cybersecurity company called Nixon. But today I'm presenting as a IEEE 5G initiative, or we just renamed it to Future Network Initiative Co-Chair. I think that's kind of my small introduction. I'll be happy to talk to you later on during the break.
Srijit.
I'm representing Walmart, the largest retailer, and also the Fortune 1 company. We deal with problems of scale that are unprecedented. And I am Srijit, and I work for an IoT team. I lead the team here, and we are building enterprise level products which can scale across multiple scenarios that Walmart is working with. I also deal with the blockchain teams a lot, and I'll probably have those as the follow-on discussions.
Vinay.
Hi, I lead the IoT business development for Cisco India for manufacturing and other industry verticals as part of Cisco. And thanks to our customers and partners and stakeholders, we have been in the business of securely connecting anything to make everything possible. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natraj. I am part of Accenture Labs. I'm a VP at Accenture Labs. So what we focus on here is that we look at how do you design or implement and bring solutions for the underserved markets, like what we call as the forgotten billion. So most of the focus has been to how to use new technologies, how do you adapt it to the large scale, to the bottom of the pyramid, and that's what some of the use cases I'll be talking about would be in IoT and blockchain around those kind of experiences. Thank you.
Hi guys, Srini Khandavli. I'm part of Corp Real Estate at Intel, and I run the IoT implementations worldwide. My focus here today is really going to be talking about solutions. You heard in the Infineon panel, you heard about products, but I think it's very critical to understand how do you take a product and actually implement it for some business value in your sites.
Alok.
I'm Alok with Tata Communications, helping set up their IoT business here, which is a pretty significant wide play. I'll talk more about it. Just a little bit about myself. I sort of have been on two different sides of the world in startups as a venture capitalist. So I was in that world for several years as an investor, and now I'm on the other side setting up a new business. So we'll look forward to an interesting panel discussion.
Hear me? Can you? Yeah, sorry. So Dr. Datta, can I ask you to just do a short production? He's an academic, so topics are a little complicated. So I thought a slide will do better. Yeah.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you, the organizing committee and Mr. Tiwari for inviting me, and also Rabi Kiran, if you're in the crowd, for introducing me to this IoT. Next, actually, I am really happy to be here. So today, wearing my IEEE 5G initiative co-chair, I'll be talking about a little bit 5G, how 5G is going to help IoT, and 5G can be used to augment the IoT deployment, and I'll focus only on the security aspect today. You see lots of application. This is actually driving the network today, right? And this network of future is not going to be only bandwidth. We're just talking to Mr. Tiwari during break. There are other kinds of applications that you can see on this chart, right? There's going to be lots of IoT type, wearables, intelligent transportation systems, connected cars, etc. It's not going to be only bandwidth. If you look at the evolution of 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, it has been mostly, ramping the bandwidth. But as you evolve into 5G, there are other kinds of applications that we need to support. And in order to be able to support those applications, you really need to, evolve, right? So let me so what is 5G? There are basically 4 different dimensions: massive bandwidth, massive sensing, massive control, and resiliency. And you see some of the applications on the left-hand side, they kind of fill into different buckets. So today's focus is IoT, which is mostly IoT, massive sensing. So if you have to support massive sensing type application, you have to get your network accordingly like that, right? And how is it going to help us? Obviously there are different kinds of scenarios in our present day world, starting from your home, an intelligent transportation system, etc. You have to be able to support it, right? Wearables, ITS, robotics at home, and as well as IoT smart meters. So let's focus into security a little bit. What I am showing here is something we worked on at CNFB, Security Expert Group. So as you evolve from the traditional security into virtualized SDN and NFB, and on the top of that 5G, there are additional security you have to worry about. You have traditional security, then as you evolve on the left-hand side, things like API security, virtualized monitoring, root of trust, things on the secure cross, secure boot, and if you're going to have virtualized IDS, IPS system, how you're going to service in them. So those are the important things we have to look into. So if you are designing your security, either in your corporate network or as an operator, you have to give additional thoughts to some of these things as you design. I'll just say some of the pillars that we should be looking into as we start moving on designing the SDN and NFB type, because I consider software-defined networking and network function virtualization as the foundation, right? So while you have the standard firewalls, as you start deploying security on top of SDN and NFB, you have to have a different kind of security model, security as a service, dynamic service chaining. Your security analytics, there are some keynote talks in the morning where you have to be predictive security analysis, apply data mining, artificial intelligence to see before the attack happens how you can predict that attack and stop it. You're going to have virtualized worlds, so lots of hypervisor-related security, orchestration. At the same time, different kind of identity and access management as well. So I'll give some of the use cases around that. But before I do that, I have to talk about if you have the SDN and NFB on the top, you're adding the 5G. And I have 3 different elements here: Cloud RAN, mobile edge, and network slicing. So these are the additional components that you're going to be adding on the top of SDN and NFB, and each of them has the security opportunities and challenges. I'll briefly go through let me go through the security use cases. One thing I wanted to tell, when you're designing security, you should not be just worried about the challenges that you're facing, okay? You have to also think about some of the opportunities that you can take advantage of. And as you're moving into SDN, NFB, and 5G, things become resilient. You also have the additional advantages where you can take advantage of some of the resiliency factor, right, in terms of DDoS attacks. So let me get into some of the use cases. So this is one use case, an opportunity. If you have an SDN and NFB in the core, and attacks are happening either on the control plane or on the user plane, you have the ability to add additional resources on the fly and subside the effect of the DDoS attack, right? That is an opportunity. This is a challenge. If you have things like virtualized world, you have a virtualized platform, and your attack may be happening on the hypervisor. You need to have proper monitoring system to be able to monitor them and mitigate the attacks quickly. This is, again, coming back to the Cloud RAN, where you have lots of billions of Internet of Things. An attack could be happening from the subscriber side. You may or may not know your end device may be botnet, malware infected. So if they are sending tons of attack, and you have a Cloud RAN as part of the 5G, You're having virtual firewall, virtual IDS, IPS, and virtual DDoS techniques. So it's going to consume lots of resources. So you need to have a way to adaptively add additional resources to be able to protect. This is on the mobile edge cloud. So we're talking about 5G, lots of security context will be moving to the edge of the cloud, right? That means you are increasing the vulnerability probability. If you're doing that, because you have to support ultra-low latency application, right? So the security takes time when you go in the core of the network to get authenticated. So if you're handing them rapidly, if you're storing the security context on the edge, so that is increasing the probability of vulnerability. So you need to be able to have ways to protect that, because lots of security context will be stored in the edge. Third one is network slicing. So nowadays, network slicing like overlaying resources from end to end to support different kinds of application. You may have ultra-low latency application, may have IoT application, but in that case, you're going to have multi-tenants on the same hardware platform and supporting different kinds of application. So there are security issues that could be emanating from the end user, because you may be connected to multiple slices. There may be side channel, memory channel effect between slice to slice. They might try to attack each other. So that's something you have to worry about. There are lots of standard bodies if you really want to go what is going on. And I'll just end with what is happening in IEEE. So IEEE 5G initiative started about a year back. I'm one of the co-chairs. We just renamed it to Future Networks. You have an opportunity to contribute this. This is a worldwide organization, 420,000 technical professionals, part of the Future Direction Committee. If you go to 5g.ieee.org, and there are 10 different roadmap working groups. Ravi in the crowd, he's also leading the education working group, and try to contribute to different working groups. You want to hold a conference, be a speaker, or try to contribute to the roadmap of the, any of these working groups, please do that. Not running out of time, so this is kind of my summary slide. What I wanted to say is 5G an enabler to support IoT. It's because it's flexible, it's scalable, and dynamic. You can change the things in dynamic way. But at the same time, there are security issues that we need to solve, and that can be solved doing in a collaborative way. We should collaborate, build the standards, build the test bed, go to standards, reform it, collaborate with the vendors, research community, things like IoT Next and IEEE to see how different use cases can be built. And that will help us to propel the IoT deployment using a 5G infrastructure. I think I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks. So I must thank Dr. Datta, because he came from the Indian Mobile Congress, and also we work a lot with IEEE, and that has been very helpful. And 5G is a complex new thing. It's not a standard. It's a network operating system. It will take 10, 12 years to really happen. But in March or April, we will run a deeper dive on it. I will now request Srijit from Walmart to talk a little bit. You can talk from there.
All right. So, typically, I wanted to talk about what we do today, and also.
Loud enough?
Yeah. Can people even at the back hear me? Is it better now? Yeah. Okay. So, I would be talking about what we do on the IoT space, and also a bit on what we do on the blockchain space. So the first part, we are building products which can serve multiple scenarios, and these are really large-scale scenarios that we are talking about. To give a perspective, we are dealing with just the real estate scenario, where we are getting data, live data from the stores, which amounts to around 3 billion messages per day, or around 1.5 TB of data per day. To put this into perspective, this is the same number of transactions that occur on a day-to-day basis across all the financial systems in the world in a given day. So that's the scale we are talking about, and that's just one use case. There are multiple other use cases which are waiting to be onboarded and to get the IoT experience and go to the next level. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is what we are closely working with, the blockchain part of the whole equation, where we have tremendous opportunity, especially in the food safety domain, where we can make disruptions and really make things better for the people. So one use case which we had across North America is where we are looking at fresh produce, And in cases of recalls or when something gets infected with certain bacteria or where there is a recall that is mandated, typically you need around 7 days to figure out what was the origin of this particular infection. And this overall creates a $40 billion wastage in the industry, right? So typically we are at a loss from food produce. There are people who are anxious customers who do not know if what I've bought is infected or not, and even the food safety inspectors cannot do anything about it until somebody figures out from where this source was. So this takes around 7 days in the current world, and we have been able to bring this back to 2.2 seconds, right? So in 2 seconds, you can basically figure out what was the origin of this, and then you can nail it down and isolate the problem, right? So this is one aspect of it, and I think you would have all heard about the large issue of meat produce in China, where some of the meat was, branded differently. There again, we have a live project that goes on where we are able to track the entire supply chain, right from the farm where the animals are reared to the fork. So it's kind of an end-to-end blockchain that we have there. So that's pretty much what we are doing, and we'll get into the details as we go forward.
Thanks. That's interesting. So just imagine Walmart trying to track food supply in China. That is interesting. Can I request Natraj to talk a little bit about your coffee thing?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. So one of the things to note is that so 98% of the coffee produced in India is by smallholder farmers. So if you know, smallholder farmers are somebody who is owning less than 2 hectares of land. And if you look at the price per kg of coffee which they get at the doorstep, that's around 90 rupees per kg. I think what we pay even in Bangalore or in any coffee shop, the powdered coffee, it's around 300 to 400 bucks per rupees we pay. And as it goes outside of India, it becomes even more. So there is a huge disparity in the price which the smallholder farmers get. So that is one of the problem statement which one of our clients had come to us saying that, is there a way where we could increase the income of the smallholder farmers? Can we do that? And this is where the idea was that could we use blockchain there? So that is how it started off. And if you Google blockchain and coffee, I think you will get at least maybe 1,000 hits on different companies doing blockchain for coffee. But what is interesting is that can it be done for smallholder farmers who may not be able to pay for that service? Can it be used in an environment where you have people who use that may not even know how to use the technology? One of the interesting thing about this, when we started with this, or some of the learnings we got here is that blockchain, people talk about blockchain as if it's a panacea for all ills, but there is a whole lot of world around that which need to be supported. For example, blockchain is garbage in and garbage out. So that is one of the key things. So what we found out was that a way to increase the revenue for the smallholder farmer was to look at the GI tagging of it. So this starts with the first mile problem of how do you capture the metadata of the coffee in a very trustful manner. So for example, like coffee, you can't instrument each coffee bean. You have to know how do you track a coffee when you can't instrument the bean? I mean, you can make it in instrument the bag, but then a bag will also can be tampered with. The second thing is that as the coffee moves across the value chain, it changes its characteristics. Like for example, the moisture content may increase to 15%, or whatever you had earlier was 12%. So as the product moves across the value chain, the entire physical characteristics change. So how do you track those characteristic changes in a very trustful manner? So what we found out was that there is a whole lot of off-chain processing which is required, which also uses vision technologies to make sure that what actually is coming through the value chain across multiple players, the data is captured, and we attach something called a veracity score. So whatever which is captured, what is the veracity of that? And based upon that, that we built a whole lot of innovations around that off-chain processing. So that is one of the key learnings we had. The second important learning was that blockchain say that it makes everything transparent. But then there are a lot of players in the system, incumbent players, who don't want transparent system. But then they are part of the ecosystem. So how do you incentivize those people to be also part of the blockchain? It also became a big issue for us. And this is where we have to devise solutions and technology and incentive mechanisms for all the players to be relevant in that ecosystem. So this is where what we found out that 20% of the time was spent on the blockchain aspects of it, and mostly it was, I would say that proof of existence was one of the mechanisms which was used, which was mostly what was required. The rest was all incentive mechanisms. How do you capture the data in a trustful manner? So that is where 80% of our effort went into. And that's where a lot of innovations happened around the edge computing around that space. So this is some of the learnings we had in that space.
Yeah, thanks. So as you pointed out, when you do large impact, it's not just technology. There's a lot of business model and others that work. So transitioning from 5G, which is the future, and blockchain, which is something early days, which we're trying to do, to something which is available right now, and then we will go to edge networks a little later. So there's LPWAN, which has pioneered a lot of low-cost, wide area connectivity for IoT, and which has also driven a lot of things in 5G. So Alok, could you talk a little bit?
So Arvind, if you'll allow me, I'll sort of digress a little bit and talk about, and you mentioned future and we're talking today. So fortunately or unfortunately, maybe unfortunately, I have always been paid to be pessimistic. So as a venture investor, I had to be pessimistic. So I was with Cisco, so colleague of Vinay here and Daisy, who's in the audience. So I had to be pessimistic, and somebody could argue, oh, that was easy, you were just giving money, but it was not as simple as that. Today, being on the business side, and we're setting up a new business while I'm sitting under the protective umbrella of Tata brand, but it is a new business. It is something where we are investing. So today I have to be pessimistic and cautious because we are investing and we need to get returns. So that's the world that I'm living in. But just to sort of looking at where we are today and what I'm.
So just an aside, a lot of people were smiling at your voice.
Right. So now turning my pessimism into cautious optimism. One data point I see here today, so I'm very happy and glad looking at the attendance here. It's just heartening. To me, as sitting on the business side now and being with the customers, these are the data points that we look at. And I'll talk about some of the things that we are seeing and what we are doing in LPWAN. So one of the things when we look at customers and we look at solutions is at the core of IoT, and I'm combining IoT and edge. I don't know much about blockchain. So at the core of it, what is the customer value that you're delivering? The customer today in India, and somebody in the morning also said, customers want everything. They want price points, they want the experience. By the way, they also want the devices to look nice. So I've had customers tell me that the sensor that you're selling, it doesn't look nice. When I have an MNC come and sell it to me, made in USA or made wherever, it looks great. So they want everything. The thing that for us that we're seeing is customers look at it from an ROI perspective. That's the bottom line. You may have cutting edge stuff, you may sell something, but eventually what you'll realize is you've just sold a POC. You just sold a small project to them. For them to scale, the value has to come out fast. So from our perspective, coming to what we are doing, and wearing my Tata hat here, we've rolled out a nationwide LPWAN network. LoRa is the technology. We sort of went big. We have covered 40 cities, all the national highways, so put in a lot of money just creating that infrastructure. And by the way, it's not just about the network infrastructure. What we realized, and we're realizing every day, it's about the ecosystem that you build around it. And all of the people here who know IoT and who are working in IoT will know IoT is not a one company, one person shop. A lot of things have to come together, hardware, software, the customer side of things, et cetera, et cetera. So the way we are looking at it, and the way when I hear some of the future things that are happening, and I see all of them coming together is at the core, at least that's our vision, we create a common infrastructure. Granted, it's LPWAN, it's a particular type of technology. Over time, we don't see ourselves being wedded to one technology. We'll see how technologies evolve. But in this core ecosystem, the way we are looking at things, and I'll give a specific example also, we want partners to come with us. So we want device manufacturers to come with us. So for example, we have a worker safety solution, and maybe there is a blockchain applicability there, which some of the large manufacturers of India in Tata Group and outside Tata Group have started using. It's a wearable watch. It has multiple features, much lower price point. It is seen as a personal health monitoring tool. It is seen as a hazardous alert system. It is seen as a tracking system. So this watch has come from somewhere else. Our platform has come in. Applications have been built in. There is analytics being brought in here. So again, just to conclude, you know, I think as I'm seeing things evolve, I'm seeing more and more customer interest. I'm seeing a lot of action in India, and I'll just make a point here. We've been pretty supportive of the whole Make in India effort around hardware here. Our base stations today for the network are being made here in India. We're very open to companies who are coming up and partnering with us on the devices side. In fact, very soon in the next few months, I can't give a date right now, we'll be launching an IoT ecosystem marketplace online effort, where the whole idea is that we become a core infrastructure provider, but let the ecosystem create solutions, and they partner with us and we take it to customers. So I'll conclude with that.
Thanks, Alok. So despite his critical hat, please invest in the future. It will happen. Can I request Vinay to talk a little bit on the edge side? Okay.
Okay, if you can put the presentation. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Arvind. Good afternoon, everyone. So I think if you look at the industry and what juncture is the industry really in, they are really looking to leapfrog and go forward from the current POCs and pilots which they would have done in IoT. And that makes today's topic extremely relevant, where we are talking about a transformation at the IoT edge. This is something which, like Cisco was one of the first ones to advocate the concept of edge to the cloud, right? And along with some of the other players like Intel, around 4 years back, we started advocating about that, because these are the elements which are required to really scale to even whatever millions of devices we are really talking about. And I would really present over here one use case, which is a great example of transformation at the IoT edge. And fundamentally, security is most important over here, so that it does not become Internet of Threats. It remains an Internet of Things. So a lot of things happening. Arvind also shared that it is evolving towards a more fresh thinking as far as security is concerned, multi-layer approach. But I will just want to talk about the use case, which we did with Mazak, which is one of the biggest CNC machine manufacturers based out of Japan. They make mother machines, which make parts which are used to make other machines, milling, grinding, and cutting machines. So they had a business requirement of implementing predictive maintenance across their thousands of machines across the globe. So they wanted to ensure that their machine becomes smart, so that customer, in a retrospective manner, they don't have to put something. So whenever a machine is moving out of their plant to the customer, it should be smart. So that is where we worked with them, and we evolved something called as a smart box. And as Alok rightly mentioned, customers want everything to look beautiful. So that is what Mazak also hired one of the designers, and they converted, although our products are also not that bad looking, but they further made it very beautiful by encasing it inside this designer box. So this houses a Cisco IoT gateway, or the Internet Industrial Ethernet switch, which has got local compute and local security and local storage capabilities, which runs the local applications for doing edge analytics. So perfect example for IoT at the edge that we are really talking about. And in terms of the overall model, if you look at it, it is the equipment going at the edge, connecting to the controllers on the Mazak machine, and then complete cyber security implemented at that layer. Also then pulling out data using MT Connect open protocol and sending it to the analytics of Mazak, so that they are able to predict that if some part is behaving in a different manner, so they can proactively ship the spare part to the end customer. So that is what led to their monitoring coolant level and temperature. So in a way, and it is a very, very sophisticated and very, very expensive machine, like goes into several tens of crores. So that is where it was implemented in a very, very scalable manner. So this is one example where we have implemented similar things with others. But I just wanted to share the role of the intelligent edge all the way from the edge to the cloud, including security and the application enablement which is there. So although we would have several use cases in all these categories which would have done globally, because at Cisco we have been leading the IoT space for more than, I would say, even 10 years, when it was not even called IoT.
And that is where we have the biggest ecosystem and a lot of domain expertise of providing all these use cases, and we can talk to you offline as well. Thank you. So Arvind, I'm giving back to you 1 minute.
Thanks,
Thank
Vinay.
you.
Thanks, Vinay. I'm a bit sorry I hassled you. He forgot to talk about 300% IRR in one of those cases. As a businessman, that got my eye interested. We'll come back to in some question answers. We will start question answer, but I have one more speaker to talk to. So Srinivas, if you can.
Okay, so let me start off with my job. I have an interesting job because Intel pays me to look at mega trends. It's phenomenal, right? People actually say, go survey what's happening. And one of the mega trends that you would observe in buildings or factories is the edge is getting super, super smart, right? So you need to protect that. They also pay me to take a look at problems, right? They say, hey, what's going on in the enterprise internally? And one of the things that I observed is that we are taking a long time to provision our devices. We typically take about 3 hours in the building. It's upwards in the factory, right? So huge problem. And finally, security. If you typically see how edge nodes are provisioned, they are done in a fairly archaic way. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But this leads me to our goal for our new building in SRR4. Beautiful building. If you guys are on Outer Ring Road, go check it out. So our goal was to do essentially secure, zero-touch provisioning, right? It seems simple, but it's actually a pretty big deal, and not many people are doing it. Before I go in, let me tell you a little bit about provisioning. Level set, right? Provisioning is getting a device into a known good state, right? That's kind of the high-level definition of that. Now, if you take a look at how typically provisioning happens, it's done, when I said archaic, it's done either through USB. Now, USB, the problem is that you can't trust the content, right? You don't know who put the content on USB, so that's an untrustworthy source. The other methodology is like FTP. The problem with FTP is it's insecure, right? You're transmitting username, passwords over the wire in clear text, so not a good situation. Most people use PKI, right? Public key, private key type stuff. The issue with that is that it's essentially a management nightmare, right? Who's going to put out all those private keys on the edge nodes? So this gets me to how Intel solved this. By the way, I represent corp real estate. I am in no way forced to use Intel products. In this particular case, Intel SDO is truly a wonderful product. Go check it out. We don't have enough time to delve into the details here. But the one thing that it does is it provides you a secure transmission channel by which you can download software. It also gives you a private key infrastructure where it embeds that on the device. So you don't have to go with an army of people, army of SIs and say, hey, put this on that edge node. So we've kind of covered a little bit about how it's typically done. One of the things that constantly amazes me is that people at a high level don't understand provisioning, right? And if you don't understand the business problem, you're not going to be able to articulate the benefit. So when you talk about provisioning on edge nodes, you're essentially talking about 3 things, right? You're talking about firmware, you're talking about OS updates, and you're talking about application configuration. That's what you're talking about. So when you come up with a strategy on, hey, what do I have to do? Really think about that, right? How am I going to do this? And think about it in terms of categories. Because what you'll see is security is now a big buzzword. If you see across enterprises, people are throwing crazy money at it. And when you throw crazy money at a problem, people want to own it, right? A equals B equals C, right? So what you'll see is you have your IT folks within the company really wanting to own that OS update. So you have to be very careful on who does what. What are the typical R&Rs, right? So we've covered the mechanisms. We've covered the software. I'll talk a little bit about SDO. It'll just take 1 minute. So coming back to SDO, I initially said, you have products in the market. Infineon has a product. We have a product. But really, the key is the solution, right? A product gives you features. Solutions give you capability, right? And for a person like me, who's an owner-operator, I care about solutions. I don't care about products. Now, so really think about what are the things that will lead you to go from product to solution. This is not an easy journey. By the way, I found that out over 3 months, right? I actually took an Intel product, being within Intel, and it took me 3 months to implement it. Final thought for you would be work actively with your SIs to really understand how to bring that to fruition, because that's where the value unlock happens.
Okay, thanks. So that's an interesting story, because provisioning is an actual important problem. I was in many projects where it takes a lot of effort and time, and the market is solving it, because you have to roll out thousands of devices, secure them, so that's solving it. So again, to recapitulate, we talked about blockchain conceptually, then we came in, we talked a little bit about 5G, which is a completely new way of architecting cellular from packet switched, and security issues. We had some 2 applications about blockchain, and of course, we were reminded about business. You have to invest wisely, and then we have to do LoRa, and a little bit about edge. So we will take some questions, and after that, if we have time, we will go back to others. All right, sir. So can you get a mic up there, and please introduce yourself. Questions, short question.
Hello, sir. My name is Deep Mirji. I'm an engineering student. I'm studying mechatronics at Acharya Institute of Technology.
That's good. Go ahead, question.
So the question is, what will happen in terms of job losses and skills as IoT makes devices and robots more intelligent?
Okay. So I think you should have paid attention. Srinivas offered you guys to come see his appetite, so he's offering some internships. I'm just joking. He's asking about jobs. Anyone wants to talk about it? Okay. I think there are 2 ways of looking at it. There's a lot of hype, and the nature of the job will change. So if you go back about 300 years ago, London was having a sea of horses which were doing the natural thing, and it was very, very dirty. It smelled, and there was a pollution of artifacts created from horses. So they wanted to ban the horses. Cars came. All the horses went out of business. But other new types of businesses came. So there is one line of thinking saying that we are removing one type of job, which is more mechanical, and creating a new type of job, which will involve new skills. Data science is a very large skill. Creativity is a very large skill. If you are employed, you have money, you want environment. So there are a lot of new types of jobs are creating. And whether the net increase in job will be larger or smaller, I think time will tell. There is probably no reason for you as an educated engineer to worry too much about that. If there are jobs, you will be in part of a sector which will have jobs. Thanks. Next question. We will take that later. Next question. Anybody else has questions? Otherwise, I have some questions from my panelists. I will go back to them. Looks like they're all convinced. Yeah. So we will leave that. I want to go. Okay, you have.
Yeah, myself, Dr. Ganeshan Tyagarajan. I represent my startup company, MMRFC Bangalore. We are fabless semiconductor. I have a question regarding the Tata Communication deployment of the LP WAN. In that, your market analysis, whatever you did, why do you think you will make money out of that business?
Why do we think? So I will not share my cost and gross margin structure here. When I said we are a startup as well, you kind of know where we are in terms of making money. So, to answer your question, look, at the gross level, and I'll talk LP WAN and LoRa here. So there are advantages, disadvantages. I think, and this is my personal belief, and that's why I'm convinced about this business, a lot of the use cases in India will require very low costs, long battery life, basic measurements, and an initial step towards connecting things, right? So I see a larger volume coming there. A lot of it is in smart cities, so think lights, metering, so on and so forth. LP WAN tends to be more suited for that. Even in the enterprise side, interestingly, and I can go deeper offline on that, when we think industrial IoT, my view of industrial IoT was also cutting edge. I've seen startups, real time, so on and so forth. But what I'm realizing in LP WAN kind of state, there's not really a connect. You would think there's no connect between LP WAN and industrial IoT. But guess what? We have a channel partner ecosystem who in turn are selling and adding their own solutions on top, which we're just building this ecosystem. They're taking LP-WAN in an industrial setting in a very simple way. And I'll give you an example and I'll end with that. A big logo manufacturing company, not from Tata Group, has used a basic, what we call a hazard button solution on LoRaWAN. So LoRa can, you can just have a button. It's got its own battery that can last for months. This is being used by an assembly line manufacturer, and instead of putting real-time sensors, and I'm not trying to sort of be again pessimistic about real-time sensing, but I'm saying how the Indian mind and the Indian businesses innovate. Instead of putting real-time cutting-edge sensors, they know that they have people on that manufacturing line, and the people are able to see what may go wrong. And if they see something going wrong, they just press the button, and that's the alarm. So again, point I'm making is there are LP-WAN in Indian context, and I guess even other technologies, there are use cases, and there is high volume that makes it attractive.
All right. I don't see any line, so I'll go back and ask Srijit. Right? There is one more. Yeah, please go ahead.
I am Somjit Amrit. I represent Advanced Monitoring Technologies. We are into IoT. We are implementing IoT solutions in data centers. So the question is to Tata Telecommunication person Alok.
Oh, you're getting the business again.
Yeah. See, as we are looking at various types of wide area communication, LoRa seems to be one of the options. When we present LoRa to companies, they seem to be saddled with the telecom companies, which have the LTE, Cat1 and things like that, where it is a SIM card business, where LoRa is a non-SIM card business. How do you think this kind of, this will really disrupt, or it will be disrupted by the big players in the telecom world?
So I'll just quickly say, look, I mean, I'll just make a very general statement, and I think that's going to be true. Different technologies will coexist, right? So I, in terms of, SIM card base, and eventually I think in 5G umbrella, a lot of them will converge as well. There are recent studies and global sort of surveys which say, which technology will have what kind of market share. So that's one way to answer it. The second, yes, there are SIM card based solutions, and that's one way to look at it. The way we are approaching it is a full end-to-end solution. So when we go and sell, along with, when I said we partner with startups, so we want to partner more and more, what we sell to the end customer is the whole thing. So you don't have to worry about just the SIM card or just the device or just the application. What you get is a full solution. You can look at the price points and you can do your own ROI and analysis. That's how we look at it.
He's being diplomatic. He's a licensed telecom operator. So let me put it. We have had this discussion with DOT and TRI. The innovation in LP-WAN has been so successful that it has forced the cellular industry, 3GPP, to adopt standards for IoT. So they have CAT M1 and NB-IoT. NB-IoT is not backward compatible. Despite all that you hear, the telecom operators have to change software-defined radios at each base station, and it's not happening in India in any great hurry. And 5G is also coming around. So I would suggest to you, while there is a lot of hype from the telecom standard, it's the hype of fear. Because 60% of public space network usage of IoT is in LP-WAN. It's not in that. So make your choices carefully. I will ask two questions to my blockchain people. Would you like to comment about transaction speed, cost benefits, or anything that you see as a compelling value proposition to pursue forward with blockchain and IoT?
I mean, if you look at anything that happens around the industry, you have a compelling dollar value added to things, and then things start to fall into place. So as I was mentioning earlier, the health industry alone is so huge that the potential impact, just in terms of pure dollars that are lost, is around 40 billion, right, in a given year. So this is the cost involved in pulling things out of the stock, the losses that occur in this multiple levels of supply chain. Say, for example, if lettuce is pulled out, nobody wants to stock them, nobody wants to carry them forward, right? Because it's a waste of money. So that's one potential impact. But an even greater impact on the overall well-being is on the health aspects of it. So 1 in 10 people have actually fallen ill due to food poisoning related issues, and this is based on public figures. And this is a big impact, right? It's just not the dollar value, it's also the well-being effect of it. And then to add to that, the social impact of it, where I think we had one of the panelists talking about the difference in price in coffee bean. That again adds another social aspect to it. So it's multifolded. Yeah.
Okay, so that's on the blockchain this thing, but part of the Indian context and essential, as I was talking to Sanjay Putar, they've done a lot of work on the social impact. So there is a use case which is about edge and using a lot of things without connectivity. By the way, I have a phrase, India is a call drop nation. So IoT in a call drop nation is always a problem. So I'd like Nagaraj to talk a little bit about that case.
I think you mentioned about health. So let me just touch upon what's happening in the health and how we use IoT and blockchain in a slightly different context for the Indian market. So we did a large pilot, some deployments in I think Channapatna, which is very near to Bangalore. So what's happening is that non-communicable diseases is spreading even to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And one of the issues is that how do we keep people well? So that, that you invert the pyramid and say that large number of hospitals being opened is actually a bad sign. So we want to make people well so that they don't come to the hospital at all. So how can IoT help there? So one of the areas we figured out is that since there are a lot of sensors available, a lot of sensing is possible, but we are trying to focus on those biomarkers, for example, heart rate variability, that can actually encapsulate our body and mind into one parameter. So most of our research and things are going around, can we find those kind of sensors which can actually give me one number for my wellness? And the other research we are trying to also do is that can we look at the biomarker and say predict the disease of let's say diabetes, progression of diabetes, or maybe sepsis. So we are looking at the IoT in the terms of not lot of data from lot of sensors, but one marker, what is that biomarker which can be tied to a disease. So this is where we find lot of value and we find lot of uptake in the with our clients. The other thing where I said blockchain could also be, which we have found a lot of traction, is that I said proof of existence. What we see is that in India we cannot trust what has been said. So for example, like we need a lot of incentive mechanism for health to be delivered to the to large population sets. So what, for example, is that if let's say I want to incentivize the healthcare worker, if he or she does, let's say 100 diabetes checks, maybe I'm going to transfer 1,000 rupees to her account through certain other mechanism like UPI. Now, how do I know that she has done 100 diabetes checks? So this is where I said there are a lot of this ambient intelligence which comes into place, which we can figure out that she has actually done 100 diabetes tests, and that goes to the blockchain as one proof of the existence of that work. And we tie it up to a payment mechanism where automatically money comes to her account. So this is where we call as micro-entrepreneurship environment. And this is where we look at IoT, blockchain, tied it up to incentivize people to be healthy, as well as make sure that the health delivery happens at scale. So this is this is what we see as what's happening.
Yeah, thanks. I think I don't want to keep you guys from lunch, so we will close the panel here. I would like the thing to come in, and thank you for taking the time and explaining and helping all of us understand. Please feel free. They're around here. You can ask questions. Okay, well, this is going to be slight trouble. Okay, Srijit.